And like I say, I'm still very much learning, so I try and watch these top guys and top players as much as possible, and see how they manoeuvre the balls around and in certain positions, because we can watch top of the table lots of that, which is great, but when they're not in position, that's the times when you can see really what sort of patterns of play they're playing.
He's playing it. And he's put the white back into the scoring zone for the drop cannon later on in the piece. You'd think he'd want to get in hand fairly quickly.
Does he? Just effortless.
Well, he's stunned onto the line here, or is he too straight? No, he's fairly straight. Sometimes Dave can be a bit difficult to predict because he has such a large range of shots. And he's left a drop cannon again. And how long have you played, Chris?
Well, I started playing snooker first when I was 11 years of age. So, and then after a few years, I sort of discovered billiards, and I still play a bit of snooker, but yeah, billiards is my preferred game now by far. So I've been playing billiards about 10 years or so now, I believe. So just drop the red in there, but would have preferred to see it over the top pocket. But
double kiss cannon here,
yeah,
possibly?
I think it could be the shot there. That's the one.
Screw cannon, red around the table, possibly. Looks like it. I think this is a shot that Steve Mifsud plays quite a lot as well. It looks simple, but it's so difficult. That cannon had to be very precise to get on the correct side of the red ball. And he hasn't taken any risks there. He's pushed it over the pocket, played a little soft cannon, and now he's back in perfect postman's knock position.
So he's restored that position he was in a few moments ago, and
he's passed the 300 mark quite comfortably here, and no end in sight at the moment. That's also one of the most difficult things about this game. You can be sitting down for the best part of 3/4 of an hour while one of these top players just relentlessly piles on the score, and when you get back to the table, no pressure whatsoever.
And I believe that, going back again to a bit of the history, so Walter Lindrup had his 4,137, I believe, and so playing Joe Davis, and so Joe would have been sat down for several sessions, I think, let alone minutes, and I think Joe came right back to the table and made a 1,000 break himself. I'm not exactly sure what the break was, but it was definitely a 1,000 break. Yeah. So
that takes some mental toughness.
Absolutely, yeah. Just to be sat down for that amount of time and not even getting a shot on the table, and to suddenly come back and make a 1,000 break yourself. I mean, that sometimes can be forgotten about in when we're talking about these breaks, but.
Well, people talk about, he's missed that. He's hit it very fine. The 328 break, that's very useful by anybody's standards.
Absolutely, yeah.
And of course now Ryan's facing about a 400 point deficit with half an hour to go. So
brilliant break from Dave Cousier there. So Ryan just needs to. I mean, I think he's he's not likely to win from here, but just nice to get his arm going a bit and.
Well, often it's all about pride of performance as well. You've travelled a long way to play in these tournaments, and if you can, you'd like to put on a bit of a show. Absolutely. And demonstrate to people that you can actually play. Ryan's an extremely good cueist, a very good snooker player as well. So.
And in fact, sort of locally, so Ryan's from a sort of area not too far from where I live, in England, south of England, So Ryan plays in a lot of our local events, and last season he actually won the West of England Snooker Championship, the Open West of England Snooker, and the West of England Billiards in the same season. So
wow, impressive.
That's quite a good field of players that go in those events. So that's an example of his ability in both games, cueing ability,
and he's generally very, very good with both hands. He's quite ambidextrous, which seems to be becoming much more popular on the snooker circuit these days, with the example of Ronnie O'Sullivan. We might be having a change of commentary for a while, and we've got George Chamis joining us. Welcome, George. Come on down, say a few words to the viewers.
Mears, 2. Three. Five. 7. 10. 12.
I'm joined in commentary, Peter Tankard here, and I'm joined in commentary by George Chamis, my friend from Sydney. And George, what a great privilege it is to have these top players here in our country.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pete. Is it all right to go?
Yep.
Yeah, it's an absolute privilege to be here. This is, for me, heaven on earth. It's just incredible to be a part of this.
Who's impressed you so far?
I've never seen David play live, and I'll tell you what I saw yesterday at the Yarraville Club was very, very, very impressive. 655 in no time in a 45-minute match.
What do you think his strengths are? You were about to say potting, weren't you?
we just saw him miss here, but I think he's got it all in the bag there. He's probably just going through the motions. And his all-round ability. I mean, these guys are incredibly talented. Their touch is just next to none. They just make it look so easy.
That's the problem, isn't it? Is that when you look at players like this, the game does look easy.
Yes, it does look very easy, but it is very, very hard, especially conditions like these. Your average player doesn't get to use these sort of conditions very often, and we all end up struggling on these, but to these guys, it's their bread and butter, all they do is just tickle the balls, and yeah, look at this, couple of shots back up top. Just incredible.
This little bob of the head that David has on the end of each shot doesn't seem to worry him too much.
Yeah. As long as just a little bob of the head, not like us, bob of the head, the body, the legs.
The arms, everything. So, George, you've actually represented 2 countries at Billiards. Talk us through that.
Are you trying to embarrass me here?
No, I'm not trying to embarrass you. I think it's an interesting story. George was born in Syria but has lived in Australia for 48 years. But at various times he's represented both Australia and Syria at Billiards. Is Billiards actually played in Syria at all?
I didn't even know that snooker was played till I realised that the IBSF was holding a world championship there in 2010. And to me that was really, really impressive to see a minnow country like that put on such a world-class event. And I was fortunate enough to be asked to represent at a masters level, which was very daunting for me as well. So, but
was that snooker or billiards?
that was snooker.
Yep.
That was snooker in 2010, just before the war started, and I was impressed by some of the players there. There was at least 2 really world-class players that were just regular 100 breakers, but they probably just needed the experience to travel around the world and be amongst a lot of top players to have the knowledge. But talking about billiards, I was asked to represent in 2015 in the IBSF, so I was quite happy to do that. And yeah, it is great to see these minnow countries come on board.
I think the surprise package of this tournament, I asked Chris Coombe earlier, who's from the UK, to name the 4 finalists for the World Billiards Championship, and he named Mike Russell, Peter Gilchrist, David Cousier, and
Pankaj?
no,
No.
Matthew Bolton.
Wow.
And I'll be surprised. I think quite a few of the English guys will be surprised at the quality of players from India and Myanmar. They don't get to see an awful lot of them. They mainly play in the IBSF events. But frankly, I'll be surprised if there aren't at least 2 from Asian countries, and my guess is 3 in the semi-finals of the World Championship. But we'll see. It's a question of whether they adapt to conditions as well as anyone else, but certainly the Myanmar guys arrive here largely unheralded, but they've got some brilliant players there.
Yes, well, I'm looking forward to seeing these guys because
I think you have one in your group, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And
I've got Cousier in my group.
Yeah.
And I think you have Quay U in your group.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but I'm looking forward to playing these guys. I don't know what he's like, but I hear a lot about these Myanmar guys. Apparently they're very, very good. Unless you really see them, you don't appreciate how good they are. Like what we're watching here with David. I've never seen him before, and it's just mind-boggling what they do. Look at it. It's just like a machine, a well-oiled machine. Is just, there's nothing to think about. Just one feather and they hit.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So, yeah, if you think they're these Myanmar guys are that good, it would be very, very interesting. But it looks like it's the best field has been assembled for a very long time, apparently. So,
I
Yeah,
think
it's just
this is the strongest field in my lifetime. Because we've got an outbreak of peace between the IBSF and WBL, which is just fantastic for the game. We've got all the best players in the world in one room, with the possible exception only of Geet Sethi, who couldn't make it at the last minute. But we've got so many talented guys here. We're in for a fantastic week of billiards. We're about to be joined in commentary. I'm about to be joined in commentary by Joe Manici, 13 times. Or is it 14 now, Joe?
yeah,
14 times.
14, yeah.
14 times, I should have known. 14 times New South Wales state champion and multiple Australian champion as well. And Joe has a lot of insights to the game. But even Joe, I think, has probably not seen something like David Cousier before. So let me put Joe on, and he'll talk you through the rest of the match.
Welcome, Joe.
David Cousier, 120.
Great to have you here, mate.
Yeah, thanks, George. I'm just having a bit of trouble with the microphone at the moment. I haven't done this. This is my second time, but is that on now?
Yeah, you don't have to hold
Yep.
it, so you just
So
keep
it's on.
it.
Right, it's on. Okay. Yeah, mate, it's great to be here. We all love the game, and to be in the mix with all these talented players is something that we might never have the pleasure to do again, especially in Australia, but hopefully it will come back one day. But it's been a great effort by all the guys in behind the scenes, the organisers, and to bring this to Australia, especially Jason Colebrook, which I think was the main instigator to get it here.
Joe, you've just played David, David Cousier, and
Is that on? It's on.
just run it through. I know it was very daunting, but just run it through. What did you think? And you know, you're a very talented player yourself, but this is another level. So maybe just let the people know what's your experience at it. And
Well, it's there's multiple answers there to that question. It's a great question. I was asked by Mac Reckowicz, and he knows a fair bit about the game, and after the match I played with David, he asked me, he said, what did you learn? Did you learn anything new that David does that, you know, because we always learn shots, we pick up shots off different players. I didn't really learn anything. You know, we've all played the shots that David plays, but professional level, they do it so well. And in billiards, it's knowledge and touch. They're the two most important ingredients. Obviously, you have to have the cueing, but we won't talk about the cue action. That's a given. But knowledge and touch in billiards is everything. And David obviously loves the game. He's from Middlesbrough. It was a melting pot of billiard players. Peter Gilchrist, Chris Shutt, Mike Russell, just to name a couple of the greats that come from that area. Roxton Chapman. So he loves the game. He puts the work in. He's got great foresight. He knows all the shots. He's got the touch. He's got the knowledge. He deserves everything he gets from the game, and it's a pleasure to see him in Australia for the first time. I've watched him a fair bit. I actually watched him in India when I was there in 2004, and he was a rocket over there. I actually mentioned to him, you know, you've slowed down a little bit. he's still faster than anyone,
Incredible.
George. You know, yeah, that we've got in this country. But Steve Mifsud's probably catching up with him. He's a bit of a rocket when he gets going. But David's just such a good scorer. He's like a, you know, I actually, if you want the truth, I said to him today, I said, we've got Neil Robertson in snooker, and he's been given the nickname as the Melbourne Machine. Well, you're the Middlesbrough Machine. That's what I'm going to call you. And I actually said it, and he had a little bit of a smile, but...
Joe, you mentioned knowledge and touch. You have a wealth of knowledge in this game, mate, but the touch that these guys possess is just far superior to what we know. The conditions that they play on, the control, it's just mind-boggling for me.
Look, it definitely is, but let me say, I can still remember my first 5 years of playing. I had a coach in the city, Frank Haywood, and his touch, he'd been playing 70 years. He was in his 80s then, and he said he started playing when he was about 15. And his touch was incredible. I really mean that. And I said, Frank, how do you get that touch? Where did it come from? Are you gifted? What's happened? And I really thought for a few years later, I was only a B-grade player at the time, and I thought that was a touch that's a God-given talent. But let me tell you, in all honesty, it's not. The touch comes from the work. As long as you practice correctly, practice the shots correctly. Like Walter in his book for nursery cannons, he's got the tap, tap, tap shot. And that develops touch. So all these players that have got the touch, like Mike Russell's got the best touch at top of the table than anyone. He's developed that. So you can develop it, but you've got to put the hours in. There's only one place that success comes before work, and that's in the dictionary. So you've got to put the work in. And if you put the work in and you gain the knowledge, you'll start making big breaks at this game.
Anything's possible.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think of this gentleman playing now, Ryan Mears? What do you know about him? I know very little.
Well, to be honest,
obviously he's an up-and-comer.
Yeah, to be honest with you, he hasn't got that natural talent that obviously David's got a little bit of natural talent in the game, and some of the others like Peter. You can normally tell the players that have got natural talent because they're a little bit faster than the average player.
Geez, what a shot!
Yeah, great shot. Yeah, there's a guy in the there's a guy called Arcani. He's got a long Thai name. He does that in the snooker, the professional snooker world over there, and he does that. That's what this guy just did, Ray. And it's a good way to play it, in certain circumstances, and obviously he's comfortable with it. But no, look, this guy's young. As I said to you, I'm not belittling the game in any way or any player, but if you put the time in, put the work in, gain the knowledge, and you put the work in, you gain the touch, you'll start making the big breaks, and that's what you need to beat these guys. You need to put the work in, because they've done it. They've all done it. David, believe me, he's put a lot of work in. Peter, Mike, I don't know what they're doing at the moment, but I know in the past years they've put a hell of a lot of work in the game, so they deserve everything they get, and it's great to have them over here, because it's awesome talent we've got on display.
Just having a few words with Pete before you came in, and he sort of mentioned, what's your 4 semi-finalists? He was leaning towards some of the Myanmar blokes playing there. I don't know enough about them. What do you...
I've seen them play. They've obviously developed.
And what would be your 4 semi-finalists if you had to...
What, you're talking about the World or the World Open?
In the World.
The World Championship. Well, obviously we don't know the draw there, but you're saying who I think would be top 4, but we don't know how the draw's going to pan out. But you'd have to be crazy to go past Peter, David, Peter Gilchrist, David Cousier, Mike Russell and Pankaj Advani, and then following you got Rob Hoare, Matthew Bolton, Drav Harrier, who's playing at the moment. He's playing Peter at the moment in one of the other quarters. But they're the guys. They're the names. They're the ones that put the time in. They're the ones that are getting the results. And billiards is a little bit different to snooker, where snooker you can be a bit lucky and sort of win, a match. But billiards, it's normally the talent that gets through, the guy that puts in the hard work and's got the talent.
Robbie Folvari, Joe, former world champion. Good to see him playing again. It is a little bit hard for him. What do you think about that? I mean, I've never really seen him play, but
Yep.
it is great to see him play.
I'll answer that in a minute. I've just been told that Drav Harrier, who's playing Peter at the moment, Peter Gilchrist, is on a 320 break at the moment. Yeah.
Wow.
So it looks like Peter could be out of the World Open because he was behind when I was in the room not long ago. And
Peter was a fair bit in front, but I think he might be behind with that break.
Yeah, well, I was sitting in there for about half an hour and he didn't do much, and Drav had 2 centuries then, so yeah. Yeah, and looks like Robbie's gone, and I think Matthew's gone as well. Yeah, I think Matthew might be out as well, because when I was in there, Rob was playing really well and had 2 or 3 centuries when I was sitting there, keeping Matthew cold. But Mike's Mike's about 500 odd in front of Robbie at the moment. So unfortunately,
And that's
our
no
Aussies,
disgrace to Robbie.
yeah, our Aussies. Well, you asked me the question about Robbie, and Robbie, he's a friend of mine, and I got a lot of respect for him as a player, and off the table, he's a great guy too. But Robbie just doesn't put in anymore. He doesn't put in like he used to.
Yeah.
He's playing a lot of pool lately. And Rob's always told me, he's always said to me, he said, I've got to practice 2 months before a tournament. And, he hasn't put that 2 months in. But to be honest with you, you don't practice 2 months before a tournament. Not being disrespectful to Robbie, you've got to keep your momentum at the game. You've got to play it continuously, basically, to be good. Because that's what all these top guys do. They're playing it all the time. They follow all the tournaments. Yeah, but Robbie was a great player. I really, really respect his ability and knowledge at the game.
Yeah. So it looks like David, Mike.
Yeah, Drav Harrier, and the other one's Rob Hall.
Going through to the semis.
So we got all the
Matthew was a
internationals.
fair bit in front. We don't know what the go is now, but I'm not sure what the score is there exactly on the other table.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, when I was sitting out there, I didn't see the scoreboard at all, to be honest with you. But Rob made 2 centuries. One was a big century and one was another century. And Matthew had a 53 break that I saw. So that's why I come to the conclusion, without looking at the scoreboard, that he was behind. But as you say, maybe Matthew got in front early, and I'm not sure. But anyway, let's talk about this game a little bit, George, and because we have been neglecting it, especially for the people listening.
But there's some pictures there on the right of
Yeah,
your
that's
screen
Drav.
there.
That's that 320
And,
break that Peter Tankard just brought me some
Still
information
going?
about it, so he's still going.
He won. We just heard some news that Matthew is well up.
Well, he must have made a
looks
break.
like-
Did he make a break? Yeah. Well, yeah, okay.
Matthew
Well,
will be going through to play
I
David
stand corrected.
Cousier.
Yeah, I stand corrected there. When I was watching, he was Rob was dominating the table, but I've just been told that looks like Matthew's going through, so he must have made a double century at least at some stage.
That's great news for Matthew.
Yeah, good on him. It was
Got an Aussie
keep the
in there
Aussie
in the
flag going.
semi-final.
Yep, for sure. That's great.
Wish
Yeah.
him all the best. Matthew's been outstanding in this country. He's been unbeatable.
Yeah. Look, what Matthew's done in this country, we all know. And if he performs like that, he can beat any one of these guys. And I think they all know that too. So for whatever reason, Matthew hasn't performed against the greats as well as he would have liked. But there's no question in his ability. No question at all. He's definitely top 4 in the world to me.
Oh, well, let's hope he'll have a big one in this tournament and be right up there and challenge these guys. It'd be nice to see Matthew do that because he's got all the ability, or got all the shots, got the knowledge. He's got it all.
Yeah,
And
he had a great coach, Bob Marshall.
we just got news that Advaj Haria finished the break on 3.99.
Yeah, it's a shame he didn't get the 400, but anyway, he will do that in the World, if not later on today in this World Open. But he's he's definitely one of the next great Indians that come through. There was Geet Sethi, well, there was Michael Ferreira, Subhash Agrawal in the early days, but then there was Geet and Pankaj, but looks like Drav Harrier, Surav Kafari.
He seems to be destined for great heights.
Yeah.
Possible world champion one day.
Yeah, I agree, George. Yeah. Yeah, he's got the potting skills as well, which you need at modern billiards. In the old days, apparently, or what I've been told and what I've read, that the potting wasn't the main feature of billiards. They actually weren't great potters. Apart from, the heyday when Joe Davis and Walter played, because they were great potters. But when I was growing up with the game, a lot of the billiard players, the old timers especially, they said, I can't pot, but they could play the billiard shots. But these days, all the great billiard players are great potters as well.
The other person is great to see here again, Mike Russell. I mean, he's been a champion for a very long, long time. And there's a few people knocking on the door, I guess, on a regular basis. Of course, David is the prime and Pankaj, but Russell's been there and done that. And he's not out of it. Well, he's never out of it, but what I mean is these guys are challenging him now, and, he's probably looking forward to this challenge. And he probably hasn't got it all his way like before. He's been a great champion.
It's always hard, I think, in any field or any sport, once you've done it all, like Mike has, to keep doing it. And what I mean by that is to put in those long hours that he used to put in. So, going back to the work ethic again, I don't think that Mike's putting the work in that he used to put in, the hours. And I think that's why his game's probably dropped off, where he's not making those gigantic breaks that he used to make.
You're probably right. Also, as we get older, it doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, exactly.
The mental concentration is just incredible, these guys.
But there are exceptions, George. I'll give you Matthew Bolton's coach, Bob Marshall. He come out of retirement, 15-year retirement in 1985. And he beat Phil Tarrant, the current Australian champion, in Tasmania in the final. And he went overseas, and he was 75 years old. 75 years old at the time. And he went overseas and he played, I think it was in Delhi, New Delhi or Delhi. And he played a fellow, it was a 23-year-old guy, an Indian, called Geet Sethi. And Geet had a 760 break earlier in the tournament. He had the high break at the tournament. And Bob Marshall got to the final, would you believe? At 75-year-old, after coming out of 15-year retirement. He won his Western Australian state title, then he won the Australian in 85, and that qualified him to play in the Worlds.
65
and
it looks like
Geet told me himself.
This game just concluded.
Oh, it's finished. Okay, yep.
Great game.
Landslide victory, wasn't it there, Dan?
Yeah.
Landslide victory.
Ryan's handled his health pretty well. Nearly 300 points against Dave.
695
to
293. Yeah, okay.
Great effort.
Well, I think the right guy won that on paper anyway.
For sure.
We all expected him to win. But what was I saying about Bob Marshall?
So he made the final, you were saying.
Bob made the final. And Geet said to me himself, right, I didn't know this fact, but I mentioned that to Geet once. I said, how did Bob play, when he was 75 against you in the final? And Geet said to me, you wouldn't believe it, Joe. He led me the first session. It was 3 2-hour sessions. And Bob Marshall, at 75-year-old, led after the first session. That's what Geet told me. And I thought that was so. You were just talking about age and billiards and that. Yeah. There are exceptions.
I guess experience
and Marshall was one
put him through, but ability is
And you got to have the passion. Look, most of us have got the passion for billiards. That's why we play it. but you got to keep that passion as you get older. So you were talking about age being a factor, and it is energy-wise, concentration-wise. Totally agree. But
yeah, everything's got to fall into place. I think you got to be match fit, and there's a lot of hours to be played to win something like that.
Exactly.
And yeah, if you don't put in, you won't get that match fitness, and fatigue settles in, and you know what it's like. I mean, you've been there, done that. So
I apologise to everybody listening too that we didn't actually talk about many shots in the game, did we, George? But we get carried away, George and I, and Peter Tankard, who's sitting just beside us, and we love the game, and we just remember things in the game, and then we just start gossiping and talking, and hopefully some people that are listening have gained some knowledge and some of the insights into the players and the game.
Sure, I think there'll be plenty to talk about, especially shots and that. Is that much billiards going to be played over the next 5 or 6 days or what have you? So people don't always want to just listen to shots. They want to know stories, and they want to know what goes on. I mean, it's a game of history. People want to know.
But I do promise, if I get another spot to commentate during the week, I will talk about shots a bit more, people. But I'm signing off now, and thanks very much, George.
Before you go, are we going to get the Walter Lindrum poem off you? Maybe not now, but somewhere in your next commentary?
We will in the next few days, yeah.
That would be great, mate. Thanks.
I've actually got
coming in.
two Walter Lindrum poems.
Good on you,
All right, thanks, George.
Thank you.
See you.